Welcome back. The taxman had to apologise today for miscalculating the tax of thousands of workers. It is the second time that there's been a mistake this year, and it's raised serious questions about the efficiency of the revenue system, as our consumer editor Chris Choi reports.
This is the tax letter thousands received, sent by the authority that should know what it's talking about. But today, HMRC apologised for miscalculations leading to misinformation and delays.
Openly admitted there's overpayments and underpayments.
Here's the internal note sent to officials which first revealed the problem. Today I showed it to the head of a taxpayers campaign group.
What it shows is the tax code is becoming far more complicated. The taxman doesn't even know what tax to take from people. So what we need to do is reform taxes, make them simpler, clearer, easier to understand.
This mistake involves PAYE calculations for the 2013-14 tax year sent out in just the last few weeks. HMRC admits that thousands contained information that would lead to underpayment and overpayment. All this despite a new computer system called Real-Time Information, introduced a year ago at a reported cost of £270 million. Tonight, senior figures in accountancy are angered by tax office attempts to blame employers for not giving correct data.
The accounting profession, for one, has been telling the revenue for months things are going wrong. The system doesn't work as it should do, that it's not just down to employers, but HMRC has to be accountable as well for these errors.
Here at HMRC, they have declined my invitation to appear on camera, and they admit they still don't know how many people have been affected by this blunder. The Inland Revenue Charter says taxpayers must take care to get things right. HMRC may need to look at that themselves. Chris Choi, ITV News.
One of the leading electronic cigarette companies in the United Kingdom has launched a legal battle over a European Union decision to regulate the product. Totally Wicked argues that regulating e-cigarettes in the same way as tobacco breaches European law and will result in stricter controls.
A 73-year-old man has been charged with murder over the death of another pensioner near Cardiff. 76-year-old Fred Hatch was found dead at his home in a sheltered housing complex yesterday morning. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident.
And there are only a few hours left in the polls for two key by-elections. Voters in Clacton in Essex will decide whether to stick with their MP, Douglas Carswell, after he defected from the Conservatives to UKIP. The Hayward Middleton election was called following the death of Labour's Jim Dobbin.
There's been a dramatic drop in the number of shops on Britain's high streets. Retail chains have been closing at twice the rate of last year. That's according to a new report. Clothes shops and pawnbrokers have been hardest hit, but coffee shops, pound shops and American restaurants are thriving. Rupert Evelyn reports from Newport on the changing face of the high street.
The economy may be inching in the right direction, but the picture is not universally bright. The decline of the high street is gathering speed, with many traditional shops going out of business or changing the way they do business. Commerce here on Commercial Street in Newport has always changed, but the threat to it seems more pronounced than ever, with online shopping and retail parks taking trade away. The high street of the past has changed beyond recognition, and according to the latest figures, that evolution is not slowing down. The study looked at nearly 500 town centres in England, Scotland and Wales. There were 16 shop closures a day in the first half of this year, and 560 fewer shops opened than last year. The result of this is that 406 stores were left empty, nearly twice as many as last year.
We've got a thriving high street. It's just undergoing change like anything else. And I think the key thing is understanding that consumer and following the consumer and reflecting their needs, because if you don't, you'll get left behind.
Or it all looks a bit run down. Is that the Newport you recognise?
No, when I was younger, it used to be full of independent businesses. People used to be, behind you there used to be a little shop. It was similar to HMV, but it's an independent one.
Empty shops are being replaced by coffee shops. The high street is in demise. But despite the gloom, it's not dead yet. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, Newport, South Wales.
Finally, a call for cyclists to put registrations on their bicycles opened up that old rift with motorists today. The Police and Crime Commissioner for Sussex says it should be compulsory to identify cyclists who break the law.
But critics say that's just not practical and that drivers are the bigger problem. Rebecca Barry reports from Lewis on the cycle safety row.
Taking off your jacket while riding a bike isn't a good idea. But without a registration plate, it's not easy to catch dangerous cyclists. That's why a police commissioner has now wheeled into the debate.
When you see cyclists running red lights, if you see them irresponsibly cycling on pavements and cycling at night where they can't be seen and so on, cyclists should have some form of identification so that those that are irresponsible on the roads, and there are a minority that are, the police would be able to prosecute them.
In the same way cars have number plates, she says all cyclists should wear some form of identification so they too can be prosecuted if they break the law.
But that hasn't gone down well with passionate cyclists like Danny.
One solution might be putting number plates onto bikes. What do you think about that?
Quite impractical, I would say, on a bike, to be big enough and visible enough to see. Most cyclists, as far as I know, myself included, abide by the laws on the road.
So is this just fueling the feud between motorists and bike users?
What do you think of cyclists?
I hate them.
Why?
Because they get in the way.
They don't pay any road tax or anything like that.
Just get in the way.
Should they have number plates?
Yes, definitely, and insurance.
Campaigners say even if all cyclists did wear ID, it wouldn't necessarily stop everyone breaking the rules. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
On tonight's ITV News at 10. The Greenpeace video that has persuaded Lego to end its partnership with the oil company Shell.
And putting a price on our greatest wartime Prime Minister's treasured possessions.
Well, join me and James Mates later, but for now, goodbye from the team.
Bye-bye.
Preparing the nation every day. ITV National Weather, sponsored by Vitabiotics Vitamins.
A very good evening to you. Well, most of us had a soaking today. Those prolonged intense downpours fade in the next few hours, but showers keep going in places overnight, heaviest across the west, breezy across southern Britain, calmer and colder across the north. A touch of frost here with maybe some shallow mist and fog patches developing. Into tomorrow morning, beautifully bright across central and eastern spots first thing. And then by and large, a repeat performance as those intense, prolonged thundery downpours get going once more, drifting their way from west to east. A drenching again for many of us. Feeling quite nice where the sunshine develops, but feeling quite chilly across the north and across the south in that breeze. I'll see you later.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Vitabiotics Vitamins.